B is for Burglar by Blackkat. Read by Code Blue. Summary. Ianto's rather wild and fairly misspent youth is most firmly and emphatically behind him. Except when it really isn't. It's midnight. They're in Splot. It's starting to rain. Ianto hasn't had any coffee in what's going on 12 hours. All of this combined is enough to strain even his generally even temper to the verge of breaking, and it's only through sheer stubborn tenacity that Ianto's clung to his composure as long as he has. A rainy, coffee-void Splot at midnight is no place for hissy fits. Oh, but if there were ever a time to indulge, Ianto thinks darkly, wrapping his coat around himself a little more tightly and turning up his collar. We could break down the door, Jack suggests, surveying the 3-story brick monstrosity squatting on the corner without much hope in his eyes. Suspect, Jack, suspect. Nothing's been proven, Gwen immediately insists, rolling her eyes. She's made this point already. 4 times, unless Ianto's lost his count, and he can't blame her for losing patience with their mulish captain. It's getting more and more aggravating, though. Arms dealer, Owen chimes in helpfully, not 2 seconds later. Alien arms dealer. I'd rather like to escape from this with my hide intact, yeah? Let's not storm the place until we know just how it's been booby-trapped. Over the comms, Ianto can hear Tosh sigh. He's probably about the only one who can. The temperature plummets about 5 degrees in the space of a few seconds, and that's enough to make Ianto's decision for him. It's possible that he's been looking for an excuse for the past 2 hours, but he'll ignore that for now. Old habits die hard, and Torchwood doesn't exactly encourage losing these particular talents. Tosh? He asks softly, stepping away from the others as another squabble breaks out. All but word for word the same as the one they had 7 minutes previously. Can you get a look at the security system of the house? Sure, Ianto. What do you need? Tosh's voice is warm, even though it's only been a few weeks since Ianto's suspension ended, and the others are still a little wary of him. But Tosh brings some coffee now, and they go to lunch together sometimes. It's been a long while since Ianto had a friend, and it's lovely. Ianto picks his way across the road, empty of cars at this hour, and squints through the gloom at the building they've been watching for 6 hours now. What's the 3rd floor like? Windows, specifically. Tosh's thoughtful frown is all but visible through the comm as she pulls up the schematics. According to the security grid, fairly tight, she admits after a moment. It's an older building, but this is a decent system. He knows that tone, though, and lets himself smile a bit. So all of 20 seconds for you to get in? Please, that's offensive. 10, tops. Her sniff of derision doesn't quite cover her amusement, or the clatter of keys in the background. All right, I'm in. What do you want me to do with it? I can't tell if there are any other traps on the doors, you know. Ianto shakes his head, brushes sodden hair out of his face, and starts stripping off his layers. I wasn't exactly planning on going in through the front, he comments dryly, leaving his coat, suit jacket, waistcoat, shoes, and socks under an overhanging doorway. His shirt is black today, thankfully. White would have been a disaster in more ways than one. There's a laser in his pocket, something he's taken to carrying since the last time he got snatched by aliens looking to pick Torchwood off one by one, and he palms it, sliding it between his teeth as he pads barefoot to the foot of the building. The bricks are worn and rough, uneven in the watery illumination of the street's one working light, and Ianto wastes no time sliding his fingers into the cracks, finding a foothold, and hauling himself up. All right, Tosh says after a startled moment, clearly watching through the CCTV. I'll admit, I was expecting just about anything but that. Yanto scoffs around the handle of the laser, but concentrates on the return of skills he first cultivated in the days of his misspent youth. They are, admittedly, not as rusty as they likely should be. In Torchwood, general support means a lot of things that the rest of the sane world would never consider falling under that heading. He pauses for a brief break with his feet on the window ledge of the second floor, and removes the cutter from his mouth, long enough to say, "It's possible that I fell in with the wrong crowd as a child. Just perhaps." Tosh snorts, and he can all but hear her shaking her head. "Really? Do you think so?" she asks dryly. Then she pauses, and says, "Have the others noticed yet?" Yanto risks a glance back at the other side of the street. They haven't. Owen is gesticulating wildly. Gwen is up in his face, because even fights where they're on the same side degenerate into them shouting at each other, and Jack is attempting to step between them, but failing as they circle him like snapping dogs. "Please," is all he says, however, feigning offence. "I was a professional at this once." "Before or after you got caught shoplifting?" Yanto winces. "Both. That was admittedly not my proudest moment, though in my own defence I was rather distraught at the time." Tosh chuckles in return. "I don't know whether to find that reassuring or unnerving, Yanto." Sliding over, and then using the corner moulding as leverage, Yanto nimbly swings himself up to the third floor, and onto the narrow ledge outside the office window. "Don't overthink it then," he advises. "Best not to dwell in all that." The laser slices neatly through the glass, making a hole just large enough for Yanto to get his hand through and unlock the window. Yanto slides it up, smiling a little in satisfaction. "Just like riding a bicycle then. Perfect." He slips inside the room, closes the window after himself, and surveys his surroundings. Arms dealer indeed. The Jadoon blaster is particularly appealing. Yanto picks it up, tests the heft, and then tries his comm. The three of them are still arguing. Yanto rolls his eyes and murmurs, "Care to tell the others I'll be opening up the front door for them shortly?" Tosh doesn't quite snicker as she turns up the volume on the comms, but she's close. Yanto has gotten very, very good at ignoring Jack's pout. The captain is leaning against the corner of Yanto's desk, one eyebrow arched in question, and body language thoroughly intractable. Yanto just casts him a mild look, and goes back to his requisition form. "Out of coffee again, sir?" he asks politely. Jack snorts at him, although it's entirely amused. "If you give me any more coffee, Yanto, I'm going to explode from acute caffeine overdose, and you're going to have to clean up the mess." "Of course, how careless of me to have forgotten." Yanto looks up at him and arches a brow in return. "If you've questions as to the operation last week, you could always read the report, sir." "You already filed it." Entirely unimpressed, Yanto closes the folder in front of him and levels a flat gaze at Jack. "Are you physically incapable of walking down to the archives, sir? And I distinctly remember submitting that entire stack of reports to you the next day, along with Owen's research budgeting. You wouldn't happen to just sign off on things without reading them, would you, Captain?" With a slightly sheepish cough, Jack straightens and quickly slinks back to his office. Politely, Yanto waits until the door is closed to break down into chuckles. He can't remember the last time he really laughed, but even so, it feels good. The end.